Hello and welcome back to the channel, everybody. My name is KawzNova, but you can call me Nova. I am the head of Team Revolution. We are a drift team based in the Forza Horizon series. We just transferred over from FH4. We are now getting comfortable in FH5, and I decided it was time. The community was asking. So in this video today, we're going to be doing my top 10 drift tips for Forza Horizon 5. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it. Alright, so jumping into tips number 1 and 2, our first tip is going to be making sure you have the optimized settings for drifting in your difficulty, and tip number 2 is going to be that I recommend everyone start drifting with at least manual or manual with clutch. So getting right into the optimal drift settings, we jump into settings under difficulty. We're going to see these settings. We're going to want to turn braking, anti-lock braking, ABS all the way off. We're going to turn our steering to either standard or simulation, whichever feels best for you. Traction control, we're going to go ahead and turn off. Stability control, we're going to go ahead and turn off. As I recommended, tip number 2, driving with manual or manual with clutch. We're going to have our driving line is going to be up to you. Cosmetic, we highly recommend driving with cosmetic or simulation just to make sure you're getting a little bit of damage, and it's a lot better for tandems. And rewind is also entirely up to you. Alright, so moving us along into tip number 3, this is going to be a very short and simple one. Basically, tip number 3 is going to be to strive to use your own drift tunes, to get out there and learn how to tune your cars, because learning how these cars work and understanding how to tune them is only going to make you a much better drifter in the long run if you're serious about this. So one drift tip of mine is, of course, always focus on making your own tunes, and I have a few videos that can help with that. I'll go ahead and link those up there so you'll see them popping up. But yeah, definitely you want to, as a drifter, you want to make sure you're always striving toward improving your own cars, your own tunes. All right, so moving on to tip number 4, I want to talk a little bit about counter steering. So counter steering is basically countering the momentum that the car is swinging in at current. And I want you guys to keep in mind when drifting, generally the direction of the tires when gas is applied is the direction the car is going to go in. So counter steering is basically pulling the direction of those wheels the other way so that you can anticipate the momentum change of the car. And there's some great spots on the map to try this out, like the drag strips, and I'll show you a good example of a way of practicing this. So here we go. We're going to rev up. We're going to swing to the left. We're going to swing to the right, counter steer. Swing to the left, swing to the right, counter steer. Swing to the left, swing to the right, counter steer. This is a great way to practice this and a great way to build control with your car. All right, moving right along to tip number 5, I want to talk a little bit about throttle control. And throttle control is going to be very key when you are in the apex of your drift and you are mainly controlling that drift with not your steering, but your throttle control and how much power you're delivering to those rear tires. So a great way to practice throttle control, and I put this in my FH4 video, is to go ahead and sit still, sit in current. If you can, throw it in neutral, hold the brake down. But we're basically going to practice controlling our RPMs. We're going to rev it up to about 7,000 RPMs. We're going to drop it down to 6, drop it down to 5, and it's a little shaky. We got to practice 7,000, 6,000. Oh, little jump, 5,000. But basically, we're going to sit there and practice controlling our RPMs. This is called throttle control, and this will help you a lot in the long run. Alright, so moving along to tip number 6, I want to talk a little bit about revving high. Not necessarily rev banging, but being, as we talked about with throttle control, being able to keep those revs high so that during your power to weight ratio, your power in the rear wheels is overcoming the weight and the tires are able to spin behind you. Also, the drag strips are a great way to practice this. It's the same as counter steering and the same as a throttle control. You can kind of combine the two and work on revving high without rev banging too much. So we're going to rev high, make sure we're not banging off that limiter. Yeah, it's a great way to practice out here in the drag strips. Don't want to bang too much off the limiter. We want to keep it down around 6,000-7,000 when we can. Throttle control, acceleration, and high revving. Alright, so tip number 7, I want to talk a little bit about clutch kicking. I get often asked this in my streams. What is clutch kicking? How can I be better at it? What is the purpose of it? So clutch kicking is used for many things, but generally it is used to build RPMs in the rear tires and then to deliver that power in an explosive force at one moment. So holding that clutch down while gassing basically is allowing the engine to produce power but not delivering it to the wheels. When you release the clutch, you are then delivering all of that power to the wheels, and I'll show you a quick example of what I mean. We're going to go ahead and shift up into third. We're going to sit here in high rev with the clutch down so there's no power being delivered to the tires. When I release my clutch, all that power will be delivered to my tires and I can easily initiate a drift. All right, jumping into tip number 8, I want to talk a little bit about inertia drifting and weight shifting. And this is essentially using our momentum on the car and shifting it between the left and right side of the car to then initiate and or extend drifts. And I'll show you exactly what I mean. We're going to throw the car to one side, counter steer to then shift the weight to the outside of the car, use that to get us drifting, counter steer to then shift the weight back to the right side of the car and continue on. And this chain is what we know as a manji. And I'll show you exactly what this looks like. Pull to the left to throw that weight on the left side. We're going to pull to the right, throw that weight on the right side with our counter steer. Do the same thing, throw it back on the left side with our counter steer, and this is known as inertia drifting or manji. Moving on to tip number 9, I want to talk about an e-brake entry or using the e-brake to initiate a drift. So basically, we're going to pull the e-brake to lock up our back tires, give the steering wheel a bit of angle to show the car in which direction we want it to go. Because as we said earlier, the direction of the tires will dictate the direction of the car, and then initiate gas to then again carry you through the drift, or even continue to leave the gas held down. Team No Lift, shout out JDrifts 9K. But I'm going to show you guys an example of exactly what I'm talking about with an e-brake entry. So let's see. I'm going to go ahead and jump it up. We're going to jump into first, jump into second. I am going to rip the e-brake, get my angle, and then gas it to finish out through the corner. And that brings us to our 10th and final tip of the video. I want to talk a little bit about an e-brake extension. And this is a very handy technique to have in your repertoire, especially when high-speed drifting if you're up in the mountain. And it also works great in Pro-Am courses. But basically, if you're coming in too sharp on an apex and you need to not drift around the corner, but to drift in a straight line, we can use this to extend our drift to make sure we make it around that corner. And I'll show you guys an example of what I mean, because that might sound a little confusing. But we're going to jump it up, get into second. Basically, we're going to come in too sharp at this corner, and we're going to use the e-brake to then extend us straight out to get us out further. You saw how I was able to shoot out about 5 or 6 feet in a straight line because the e-brake is going to keep you straight instead of drifting around the corner. So that e-brake extension can be a very handy tool in your drift repertoire. All right, that is going to bring us to the end of this 10 drift tip video for Forza Horizon 5. Again, my name is KawzNova. You guys can call me Nova. I'm the head of Team Revolution. We are a drift team based in the Forza Horizon series. I'm live on Twitch 3 to 5 days a week. I have YouTube video content coming out all the time, so please remember to hit that subscribe button, the thumbs up, leave a comment if you have questions, concerns. I know people tune and drive differently, so of course this isn't the end-all be-all. These are just my tips on how to get better at drifting, but thank you guys so much for joining me today. I'll see you again. Let me know if there's a video you'd like to see me make down in the comment box below. Peace.